What does the industry need to hear, right now
Mm.
to really stay relevant and keep evolving in these times?
Well, I think people just need to be real and authentic. I mean, I think probably my biggest pet peeve is seeing person after person after person labeling themselves as a top leader. They're going to take their team to the top. They're in front of a Mercedes, they're
Mm,
dressed to the nines, they travel the world, and then you find out something a little bit later that's completely the opposite. People are just not being completely truthful.
mhm,
And maybe that's just a personal pet peeve.
mhm.
But it really is an issue in the industry because people buy into that. And then you've got a team of people who are expecting to live a lifestyle that maybe they can't live.
We are Attraction Marketing. Welcome.
All right. Well, this is Andrew from attractionmarketing.com, and I'm here with Jenn Glacken, who is a 3-decade veteran of the industry, still with the same company, which is amazing. Transitioned from offline to online very successfully. Has a large team, again, a top leader, and has been so for uh, I mean, decades at this
Yeah.
point,
Oh, yeah.
which is awesome. So I'm really excited to kind of dig in. We've never had a chance to sit down and talk, so I'm stoked to dig into your story, and it's rare that you get an opportunity to see someone's personal experience of how the industry has evolved, over
Mm.
you know that period of time. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited to dig in. Let's start out with the way at the very beginning. So, like, how were
Okay.
you first introduced to this industry?
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me first. And I'm super excited to share a little bit about it because I think I have had such a journey in the industry. And it started because my son had some health challenges. I was a stay at home mom. My little baby was having all these respiratory issues, and
Mm,
somebody said, try some environmentally safe cleaning products. And I thought they were crazy. But I needed to get this person off my doorstep because she kept coming back and talking about these products. And so I finally said, fine, I'll take them in my house and see how it works. And within 3 days, our environment had changed enough in the home that my son was not having all the respiratory issues that he was having. So that was a big enough change for me. And I started to use a lot of the different products from the company and really fell in love with the products.
mm,
I was a product of the product, as
mhm,
they say. And I was for a number of years, and I shared them with friends and family members. I wasn't building a business, at least I didn't know I was building a business. I technically was, and I was getting a bonus check, but
mhm,
I wasn't physically out there saying I am building a business.
mhm.
So I was a customer for a long time, loved the products, loved the company.
That's great, and so many people get started. Yeah, I mean, my first exposure to the industry was there was just this product I really liked. Someone shared it
Yeah,
with me, and I was like, "Oh, this is great."
yeah,
And I didn't continue down that road. I mean, I shared it with a few people, but I mean, that's how so many people get started. Is they just yeah, it's just like, "Oh, I love this product."
right.
So that's cool. So how many years would you say? So you said that you shared it with a small group of
hmm
people, but, like, so how in terms of your trajectory, how many years was kind of that period of your career?
Well, I started in 1992, believe it or not. It makes me sound really old. And for about 6.5 years, I was sharing, and I was actually at a leadership level. I was actually at the second leadership
Mm,
level in our company, even though I was technically not building a business.
mhm,
I was sharing.
mhm,
And so for 6.5 years, I did that. And then my husband at the time lost a job, and
mm,
we needed an income.
mhm,
And I was homeschooling my kids at that point. I was an elder at our church. So I was very involved in a lot of different things. And I wanted my life to stay as close to the way it was at that time. I didn't want to go back to a corporate job.
mm,
And so I thought, well, I love these products, love this company. Let's see if I can make this work.
mhm,
And that was
mhm.
in 2000.
2000. Awesome. So, what was like, what was your experience? I mean, did you have, because 'cause you'd already had success just
Mhm.
sharing the product. So what was that like when you were started building? Like, how long did it take you again, and this was, like, totally offline.
Mhm.
How long did it take you to, achieve, to start, ranking up and tell me about kind of that, era.
Yeah, it was a really short period of time, believe it or not, because I was committed to not have my kids go hungry, to be able to pay the bills. And so I dove in. And the thing that I learned that I hadn't been doing was that I needed to talk about the business.
Mm,
I'd only been talking about the products,
mm,
sharing these amazing products with people, and I really had not talked about the business at all. And so I went to a leadership seminar in Chicago, January of 2000, and the guy on the stage said, talk about the business. So I did that. And in my first year, I sponsored 10 business partners that all got to at least the introductory leadership level. and I was making between $4,000 and $6,000 a month within about 8 months.
Wow.
So it was a short period of time, at least, back in that day. And I did it all offline. I was
Mm.
having in-home
Oh,
parties and
nice.
had your list of names. And I even sat up at craft shows and farmers markets. I was doing anything and everything to make sure I got in front of enough people to really get the business off the ground.
Okay, so tell me about like duplication. How did that aspect of the business go for you?
Well, I created a process and a system. I knew I needed it.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because we talk about tools and automation being a process and a system, and I had a written process and system.
Mm.
So, you get a brand new customer. Here are the things that you do. How do you follow up? Here are the things that you do. And I created a training program called Glacken University. And it would be, at first, it started out at 12 weeks. We were doing it on the phone, all these crazy things. It was in home or on the phone. Then it ended up in a Zoom room eventually.
Okay.
But it was a process and a system that worked.
Mhm.
And we taught people how to do grand openings to get their business off the ground. And we had a duplicatable presentation that they would go through. They either had a flip chart, they could use a video that was already recorded, they could use the video that was recorded online. So there was a lot of duplication tools that I had put in place, but it was still what we would call old school.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. So
It's fun.
when does the transition to building online come into your journey?
Oh gosh, I wish I had jumped on it when I first heard about it
Mhm.
because I heard about it in the 1990s. So while I was sort of playing around and not really building a business, I ran across a guy named Mike Dillard.
Okay.
And I heard about magnetic sponsoring and I bought the book. And I got on all sorts of email lists and I was getting all sorts of stuff in the mail, but I didn't have the time and the energy. I was homeschooling my
Mm.
kids. I was really involved in all the things I was doing as a mom, really. And when I decided to build a business, I don't know why I didn't go back to that.
Mm.
I didn't. And it took me, gosh, until about 2016, 2017, believe it or
Okay.
not,
Yeah.
when my team was adamant that they needed a process and a system that was online. And I didn't have it.
Mhm.
And I took a ton of courses and I took courses from amazing people. There's a lot of great resources out there in the marketplace, but no one taught a system and a process. And that's what I was looking for.
Mhm.
I knew how powerful a system and a process would be if I could just have it for the online version. And that's when I came back to attraction marketing. I remember seeing the video pop up online and it was Fernie. I thought, oh my gosh, this is this Fernie guy again. And I
Mm.
knew the connection between Mike Dillard and attraction marketing. And so I finally said, I'm going to do it. And literally, when I got on the coaching call, I said, I'm in.
Mhm.
And I was in with 2 feet.
Okay. So before that time, you were not doing anything on social media, or did you have like a little bit of a presence, but you weren't really
Yeah, I had a
didn't have the
Facebook
process?
page.
Mhm.
I had a Facebook page,
Mhm.
and my team had a Facebook page. And I am not a spammy type person. And I felt like posting about products or
Mm.
posting about my company, it felt spammy to me.
Mhm.
And I've always told people to lead with your gut. And if it feels spammy to you to do it, think about the receiver. Is it going to be spammy for them? And I really just sat there and I thought, I don't like it when I see everybody else spamming their products. I don't like it when somebody drops into my DMs and says, hey, girl.
Mhm.
I didn't like any of those methods. And
Mhm.
that was all that I knew or all I had seen.
Mhm.
So I didn't know what else to do. So what I did was I shared about my life and I shared about my kids. And I did share about travel because I travel almost every year with my company. So
Mhm.
that was one thing I did share about, but I never really tied it to the business and that they could join me in the business.
Yeah, so it's
Didn't
more
know
of
how
a
to do that.
personal branding sort of
It
thing, but
was.
yeah, not something team.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So you I guess you found us
Hmm.
in 2017
I did.
and then jumped in, and then so tell me like what happened then? Like what was that process like? Because I know that obviously you had a large team. You said you're still
Hmm.
of course with the
Hmm.
same company.
hmm
So
Yep.
you've got a large team.
Hmm.
So yeah, what's that like integrating then like online sort of
Hmm.
duplication systems and things with a pre-existing team? Like what does that process look like?
It's challenging. I have to tell you, I have well over 307, 8,000 people in the organization. So it's a huge organization. I've got a lot of leaders on the team. And so not everybody wants to follow a process. Not everybody wants to get on board. Not everybody wants to go online. So there were a lot of different obstacles and
Mm.
resistance from the team. But I decided I wasn't building an online system for the people I had. I really decided I was building an online system for the people who hadn't found me yet. And
Mhm.
I think that was an important shift for me mentally. But that was actually further down the road. If you don't mind, I want to back up a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit because when I first came into attraction marketing, I came in only to get a process for my team.
Okay.
And so I didn't come in to learn myself how to build online, and that was a huge mistake. And I would tell anybody that I talk to today, and whenever I talk about attraction marketing, because I share it with a lot of people, I tell them, you have to go in for yourself. I don't care if you've built a huge organization. I don't care how many thousands of people you have on your team or how many millions of dollars you're earning. You have to go in and figure out how to build it online yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can teach your team the steps. So that was a learning for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to come back a few times, especially to the target market table and, like doing a target market for myself versus just, okay, I've got to do it for the team.
Mm-hmm.
But once we got that part down, then it was, now I need the systems. I need to develop the launch process. I needed to develop communication tools. I needed to use automated texting, automated emails. These are things I wasn't using.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing, oh my gosh, I can remember sitting at my desk and folding paper newsletters. And this is still back in 2017. I mean,
Okay.
isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
It was. And I actually had customers tell me, I don't want to get a paper newsletter. I'd like to get an email newsletter. And I knew how to write an email newsletter,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know how to automate it and send it out to all the people.
Deliver it. Yeah.
Right. So there was a lot of learning for me, really, really a lot of learning. And when I decided that it was going to be for the people that hadn't come to the team yet, I think that was the powerful part for me, because then I didn't worry about whether people said they were going to come on board or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when people heard I was building it for the team that wasn't here yet, that created a lot of FOMO, and people didn't want to miss out on what was being developed. And so we had about 50% of the team adopt, I would call it launch point 1.0. That was what I call my first launch process, which came out in about 2022. And then we just did an iteration in 2025 of launch 2.0, which is totally upscale. We've gone a couple levels beyond. We've got opt-in pages. We've got immediate text and email threads that go out right away. We've got a lot going on now that I didn't have, but it's iterations and it's learning to get there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, it sounds like you had a successful system offline.
Mhm.
How much of that translated into the online world, or did it kind of feel like totally new to you at the time?
I think initially it felt totally new, and I think that was a mistake I made also,
Mm-hmm.
is I sort of threw the baby out with the bathwater. There were a lot of things that worked about the offline process that really still work in an online environment. It's just, for example, my follow-up process. The follow-up process was super easy once I got an automated text system and an automated email system. You just, instead of making the phone calls and verbally saying these things, you just write it down and you put in a text or in an email.
Mm-hmm.
So just it's taking things like that. And I felt like I needed to start from scratch with everything, and I didn't. And so I have gone back, and I'd say that's where the launch 2.0, like my upgraded version, it brought back a lot of the things that worked in the past. And so I've even integrated some of the offline things that we did that I know really work. And if somebody only wants to build online, they can skip those pieces.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants to build only offline, they'll skip the online pieces. But I built a system that I know works. It's been tested. We were having huge success with it. So if somebody wants success, they'll do both options.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And so you kind of have like almost like a choose your own adventure for the team,
Mhm.
right? So it's like you're kind of servicing both styles of building.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. Excellent. So I would like to dig in a little bit, if you don't mind, to kind of like what does your launch plan entail? Like, kind of what does that look like?
Sure. So you start in with an opt-in form. You opt in once you've become an ambassador in the organization, and you go through a pre-launch. We have a 7-day or 7-step pre-launch. They can do it as fast or as slow as they want. And then we have a 7-day launch. And so that's the beginning. And then I have 120 days worth of pre-created content for the folks. So they don't have to worry during those first 4 months about anything other than learning the comp plan, learning the products, learning the company, getting their mindset in the right place. And there's training throughout the whole process. So they're getting trained on products, they're getting trained on back office stuff, they're getting trained on the compensation plan. But throughout it all, they don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, what am I posting today? Oh my gosh, what do I have to create? And especially for the people who don't know anything about being online, if somebody knows how to build online and they're really comfortable in front of a camera, they'll take what is given as a prompt and they'll probably tweak it to make it their own. But most of the folks that I'm finding, they're new to social media. They haven't used it before, at least not in a business sense. And so they don't understand having a posting cycle and a schedule and posting consistently and all of those pieces. And when you post 120 days consistently, you've now developed a habit that's hard to break.
Oh, so the 120 days is like their activities.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they're posting, it's a post every day, it's a reel, it's a story. And so they get a text prompt for that, and then they've got a daily method of operation. So they've got a little check sheet of their DMO.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Got it. So, okay, so where's the struggle, right? Because you didn't struggle with prospecting, recruiting, duplication, bring your business online, like, but I know you grew a lot as a person. I mean,
Oh,
over this whole process. So, and I know that a couple of mistakes along the way, like maybe not translating kind of the offline systems online, but what were some of those key catalysts for growth in this process where you were like kind of forced to become a new version of yourself?
oh my gosh, Andrew, there were so many. It sounds like I didn't have any, but I had loads and loads and
Sure.
loads.
I
So
know they're in there. It's like, okay,
they
we
are
gotta we
here.
gotta find them.
Yeah, oh, they're easy to find. So the first part was just I believe it's arrogance, right? It's ego when you come in and you say, I just need to do this for my team. I don't need to do it for myself, right? I
Mhm,
think that was a huge not a slap in the face, but it was like this awareness because I would have said to you, I'm a humble person,
mhm,
right? And yet when I came in, I didn't come in with the humility to say I need
mhm,
to start at ground zero.
mhm,
So when I figured that out for myself, I threw myself into every learning environment that I could within the
mhm,
community as a student, 100%. I've got notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks of notes. I took copious notes. I studied. I watched all the videos. I went back and rewatched. I really treated this like a college course.
mhm,
And for me, that was so impactful because not only did it change my business, but it changed me. It transformed me as a leader. And one of the core culture principles in my team is resourcefulness. And where did I get that? I got that from lesson number 1 of Altitude with Fernie when he talks about being resourceful.
mhm,
And at the time, I would have said I was resourceful, but I wasn't, not to the
mhm,
degree that I am now. I feel like I am so equipped to go out and figure anything out that I want and need to do. Everything's figure outable, especially with AI. My goodness, you can figure
mhm,
out anything.
mhm.
And so really I changed so much as a person. I could spend hours telling you all
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
things.
Totally. Excellent. Well, let's see. I do wanna talk about AI because
Yeah.
I think that that's just my take on it is, I mean, I have a hard time wrapping my head around what this means. In
Mm,
my mind, it's almost like when the internet first happened
right.
and you're like, okay, this is a whole paradigm shifting
Mhm.
development. And I think AI is something very similar. And it's
I
almost
agree.
hard to think about what
Mhm.
this, what this means at this point.
Right.
So I want to get there. But first I'm curious to know, so one of the, kind of pieces of feedback that we've gotten from a lot of leaders is,
Mhm.
they face some resistance, whether it's in their team, in their
Mhm.
company,
Mhm.
so
Mm.
did you have that experience, with your company? You said your team was sort of demanding a bit
Mhm.
more training for online, which I think which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because, we've been around for a while,
Yeah.
and, there was a period of time where, I don't want to say we were perceived as like bad guys, but like, you know, there was a lot of resistance
Right.
to what we're putting out there. And so I'm just kind of curious, what was your experience in your company around this whole online world? Because you got to see, my apologies, microphone. You got to see like from the very beginning,
Mhm.
this whole evolution of, you know, building a business in the old school ways to now online. So what
Right.
what did that look like?
Well, I think because I've been with my company for 31 years, there's a level of respect, and I do a lot of training for the company. I'm on the growth council consistently. And so I feel like they trusted me as a
Mhm,
leader. And that might be different in different companies, but I think that they gave me a little more leeway than maybe other
mhm,
companies might give their folks. So while our company was doing some social media things, they were definitely not doing social media the way we teach it here at Attraction Marketing. I say we like I'm part of the team. I feel like I am. Um,
yeah.
but we
Absolutely part of the community. No
well,
doubt.
we talk about, the fact that you want to use curiosity marketing.
Mhm,
And really, curiosity marketing keeps you out of compliance issues with a company. It helps to make sure that people are coming to you, you're attracting people to you. And our company was putting together really beautiful curated pieces that were all product pieces.
mhm,
That talked about the product, talked about the company. Everything had their logo on it. Well, I'm
mhm,
trying to brand myself and teach my team to brand themselves. So we don't want to have the company logo all over everything. So those were important things to learn and to teach. But the company did give me leeway. And since that time, the company has really opened the floodgates for a lot of folks
mm,
to build online. They are very, very open to the process. Now they're trying to teach their own little pieces. They've tried to put some onboarding pieces together. But once again, as long as they stay open to somebody wanting to build, it really doesn't matter as long as
mhm.
they're not shutting the door and saying you can't do it.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
which, of course, that a lot of people had that experience, so it's
right.
awesome that, you had that level of influence within your company that, Yeah, they kind of let you run with it,
Yeah,
which
they
is
did.
awesome.
It was awesome
Yeah.
and is awesome.
Hey, my friends, hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick minute and invite you to something very cool. If you are tired of following up with dead leads, if you're tired of all the spammy, scammy conversations online, if you're tired of chasing down friends, family, and people you work with just to get somebody interested in your business, and you would actually like to talk to highly qualified people who have a genuine interest in doing business with you, then we have our all digital 5-day boot camp that teaches you all the things that we do, and it will help you get 3 to 7 new customers each and every single week. That's our personal guarantee to you. If you want to take advantage of that, click the link directly below this, or you can go to attractionmarketing.com/YouTube. Now, let's get you back to the show.
Now, okay. So this 120-day, I wonder if you
Hmm.
could kind of give me a little, insight into the
Yeah.
psychology because,
Mm.
you know, um, someone, maybe not someone who's brand new, because that might sound really, of course, appealing to someone who's like,
Right.
look, I'm brand new, I don't know what to do. But for someone who's a little bit more sophisticated, they have a
Hmm.
business and
Hmm.
they're thinking about maybe, taking a similar process,
Hmm.
and approach to their team,
Hmm.
you know, it does sound maybe a little bit overwhelming. So what
Overwhelming,
would
right?
how would you encourage someone to kind of, take a bite out of that elephant?
I don't think anybody needs 120 days. I needed 120 days to get my team on board and to get them creating content and to learn social media. And I was buying myself some time.
Mhm.
So when I first came out with Launch 1.0, that's what I needed was I needed a little bit of time to try to get all the cats corralled and get them moving in the right direction. And so that was not what I would encourage anybody to do. I think having a 10-day, 30-day at max type of a, even if it's just prompts, I don't know what everybody wants to do, but from a leadership
Sure.
perspective, it could be any of those things. I elected to create content. Now we have that content, and so it's available for the team. And I found that that was really the tripping point for people was creating content. And
Mm.
that was partially because they were so new to social media. They had
Mhm.
never looked at social media from an attraction, influence, and enrollment perspective. So they weren't even understanding how you would do each of those pieces. There was a lot I had to train them on.
Mhm.
And now I feel with new people, the way the process is set up at any point in the process, you know that you can create and curate the content to your own liking. We encourage that. We actually teach that in some of the trainings that we do on the weekly training. We teach people how to take, let's say there's a quote for inspiration and motivation.
Mhm.
We tell them how to take that quote, put it on a background of a picture that they like or that resonates for them, how to use verbiage that they can get from ChatGPT about how they would talk about that quote.
Mm.
So, yes, there's something curated for them
Mhm.
that would be there for somebody new, but somebody who's more sophisticated in social media, they could just take it and create their own. And from a leadership perspective, I would say do not do 120 days worth of content
Sure.
unless you're in the similar situation. Maybe somebody's in a legacy company and no one's ever built online and they're trying to buy themselves some time also. This is a suggestion. This is a way to buy yourself a little bit of time to get everybody moving in the same direction.
Yeah. So you mentioned how you initially, you had to have your target market
Mm-hmm.
exercise and revisit it, and that's,
A
something
lot.
that we do a lot.
Yeah.
Is that something that is part of your team process? Like, how are you kind of orienting them? Because it's I find that the concept of attraction marketing
Mm-hmm.
and the concept of solving people's problems
Mm-hmm.
can be counterintuitive in the sense that really understanding their true you know what I mean? Like
Right.
really getting to the core of like and what that looks like. That's a difficult one to wrap your head around. It
Right.
really does require there's a whole shift in mindset around and value too. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of another sort of like it's a concept that yeah, it you have to integrate it, is
Right.
probably the best way to say. So, is that part of the process of teaching folks how to, go through this plan and be creating their own content? Like, where does that kind of fit
Yeah.
into?
Well, let's talk about the next struggle that I had that I didn't talk about yet, which
Okay.
was that when I had just joined attraction marketing, I thought I'm going to just teach my team as I go through the process.
Mm,
So I came in to learn the content so I could go teach them, but right away, like we learned target market in lesson 3, I believe it is, or lesson 2. It's really early in the
very early.
process.
Yeah.
And I went back and had my team doing that. So guess what happened? They got stuck. And I'm not saying everybody on the team. I had a core group of
Sure.
leadership folks that wanted to grow online, and that's the group I was working with to do this. They got stuck. They were so confused and they went around and around. They redid that table over and over and over again. So after many conversations with Fernie and Tim, I decided
Mhm.
we needed a team target market. So we did end up coming up with
Mm,
a team target market and really explaining what's the team target market. And everybody has a flair on it. It's basically under the umbrella of stress, and there's certain verbiage that we use, but each person comes to stress with a different perspective. So you might have somebody who feels overwhelmed, somebody else feels like they've got too much on their plate, they can't get it all done. Someone else says they feel this churning inside, right? Like we all have different ways of describing stress. Some people can't sleep,
Mhm.
so there's just a laundry list. So everybody comes at it from their own personal perspective of stress. And then we have a lot of content and a lot of guidance through how they can start to create content using the verbiage that they feel resonates with them.
Mhm.
So we're not taking them down because so many people aren't necessarily sophisticated enough to learn that. And I don't want to teach it.
Mhm.
I absolutely love attraction marketing, and I send everybody through attraction marketing to
Mm.
get the training and the base training. And then they can come and we can work on all the other things that they need to do. But that's
Sure.
not part of the launch process.
Yeah, yeah, I gotcha. Uh, Very cool. Well, I'm curious to pivot a little bit.
Mhm.
I'd love to talk about what are some of the trends you see
Mm.
generally in the industry, and depending on how, maybe spicy you want to get, because there are things that we see.
Oh, there's a
Um,
lot.
but like, you know, if the industry were to put on its big boy or big girl
Mhm.
pants, like what would that look like? What does the industry need to hear, right now
Mm.
to really stay relevant and keep evolving in these times?
Well, I think people just need to be real and authentic. I mean, I think probably my biggest pet peeve is seeing person after person after person labeling themselves as a top leader. They're going to take their team to the top. They're in front of a Mercedes, they're
Mm,
dressed to the nines, they travel the world, and then you find out something a little bit later that's completely the opposite. People are just not being completely truthful.
mhm,
And maybe that's just a personal pet peeve.
mhm,
But it really is an issue in the industry because people buy into that. And then you've got a team of people who are expecting to live a lifestyle that maybe they can't live.
mm,
And so I'm really, and maybe this is, once again, I'll say this is just probably a Jennifer Glacken thing, but I really want my people to be real and authentic. I want them to understand what it takes to build a business, that it actually takes work, that it takes discipline, that it takes consistency. This is not a get rich quick scheme.
mhm,
Yeah, I'm saying a lot of things that maybe aren't popular in the industry because it's still portrayed that way sometimes.
mhm,
I know we've got a lot of leaders and a lot of industry leaders that talk about it being real and authentic and how important it is to be real and authentic, but I don't see that necessarily translating
mhm.
into what people are doing online. And social media allows you to be whoever you want to be and whatever you want to be, and no one knows no one's the wiser. They don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, that's fair. I think even the concept, like authenticity,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And even like attraction marketing
Mhm.
generally, because that's become almost a much more commonplace term
It is.
than it once was. But it gets misinterpreted a lot. And
Totally.
a lot of people are saying like, oh yeah, well, we're doing attraction marketing, but in reality, it's like, no, you've just kind of translated some of the offline behaviors online, and it's
Right.
very inauthentic. And of course, one of our key things that you just sort of touched on is having a process that people feel good about,
Right.
and not something that they feel kind of, kind of get the ick, as the kids like to say.
Right.
So yeah, no, I think that's huge for the a huge shift for the industry. Um,
Can we talk about the attraction marketing term just for a second?
Absolutely.
It seems like everybody, no matter where you turn, everybody's dropping that
Mm,
they use attraction marketing and we attract people to us. And then when you dig in a little bit, you're absolutely right that they're not using a process. And the process of attracting, influencing, and enrolling, there's a lot of pieces, a lot of components. And I've been in the community for 3.5 years now. And I still have things I'm learning. Every single time when I hear content being delivered, I learn something new because there's a lot of nuanced pieces. There's the sophistication,
mm,
and social media changes every day. I mean, it really
sure.
does.
Yeah.
And so you have to stay on top of the trends. You have to stay on top of what's working right now. And that would be another pet peeve is people teaching things that worked many, many years ago. There's
Hmm.
still leaders out there teaching people to drop into DMs
Hmm.
and say, "Hey, girl." And I actually saw a top leader put that in a training manual and hand that out just last week. And it was a "Hey Girl" script,
Wow.
and it's a top leader. And
Yeah.
so when I looked at that, I thought, "Oh gosh," and that person claims to use attraction marketing. So,
Hmm.
yeah, sorry, I just had to get that in
No, no,
there.
I love it.
It's
Yeah.
aggravating.
So you kind of mentioned before, because and this is where I have a hard time kind of wrapping my head around, the role of AI in this, this
Mhm,
kind of new era that we're moving into. And obviously, we want the industry to remain relevant.
mhm,
And I just kind of wonder, we can start from big picture and then kind of narrow it down.
mhm.
But, you know, how do you and I'd love, of course, to talk about how you used it to,
Mm-hmm.
help train your team and everything, but,
Mm-hmm.
what do you see in terms of, like, this, this big shift that's happening right now
Mm-hmm.
that I think we're all trying to, like, wrap our heads around, like, what does this mean? What does this look like? What is even the next 12 months
Right.
of the industry look like in this era that we're moving into?
I personally think that people are using AI incorrectly.
Mm,
I think that people are using AI to create content, to ask for how do I do a reel?
mhm,
How do I train my team? What should I write in an email to my team? What type of training should I create for my team? All of those types of things. When I think the power of AI is really having AI get to know you
mm,
so well that it can completely mirror you. And then it can really understand you. It could be a therapist, it could be a
mm,
coach, it could be your mentor to help guide you down a path of what you've told it that you really want to accomplish.
interesting.
And I've spent probably the past, I don't know, I think it's probably about 6 or 7 weeks helping AI thoroughly get to know me through personality tests, through loads and loads of question and feedback, spending hours with AI. I talk to AI every day.
Okay.
And I give input to AI every day about who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking.
Mhm,
And it gets more and more refined. And to the point that AI can write content now for me that I look at it and I read it. And I'm like, that's me. Don't need to tweak anything. And it's helped me collaborate. I feel like it's an incredible collaborator
mhm,
to collaborate on any type of an idea that you might have, whether it's writing a book, whether it is content, whether it's how to train the team,
mhm,
how to help your team get to the next level. I mean, you can do things like what I mentioned earlier that I think people are using it incorrectly for,
mhm.
but I think it comes after you help AI completely get to know you.
Okay, so yeah, so that's the foundation.
Mhm.
So okay, so let's dig into that then a
Mhm.
little bit. So, like you mentioned personality
Mhm.
tests. So, I mean, what does that look like?
Well, like, let's say, so I had a Myers-Briggs test
Okay.
done years ago. I've had the DISC profile, a number of them, but I put into AI, I am a INTJ, and I typically am an IE, so I'm really an XNTJ on most tests. And so it understood that well enough to understand. And then I said, what other questions do you need to ask me to understand that better and to be able to understand my thought process better?
Mhm,
And so then it came back to me with about 15 or 20 questions.
mhm,
How would you handle a situation like this? How would you handle this? What's a fear around this topic? And so it gave me a lot of different situations and scenarios because it can, it's pulling content from, excuse me,
oh,
microphone.
yep.
It's pulling content from everywhere around the world on an INTJ and
Mhm,
all of the different personality pieces of that Myers Briggs.
mhm.
So the more things you know, whether you know Enneagram, Colby, like there's all sorts of different
Sure.
personality tests that you could do. And the more you can put into it, the better, and we've all heard that, right? The better the prompt, the better the
Mhm,
input, the better the output.
mhm.
So the more it knows you and the more detail you give it about yourself, the better. And I always answered every question based on me personally and then how I would handle it in a business setting.
Mhm,
Because I really wanted to make sure I distinguished because there's times personally you might handle a situation different than you'd handle it in a business setting.
mhm,
And so we dove into emotional intelligence. I mean, AI and I, we've gone through a lot of different paths. We went back to high school and junior high and things that I wanted to do then and maybe didn't accomplish or did accomplish. Um, the paths I went, just your life, who you are,
yeah.
what you bring to the table, and it references that all the time now. Well,
Wow.
do you remember back when you did XYZ? This might be a time to pivot and go down a different path.
Wow.
It's pretty powerful.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So you're taking these personality tests,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're telling ChatGPT or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
hey, these are my results, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's asking you questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're just giving it more and more personal detail,
Mm-hmm.
and then so then from there, you mentioned it's making better content.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's going to know a lot more of your story,
Right.
and then so what are some of the like conversations you're having though? Like, is it kind of coaching you? Like, what does that look like?
I can ask for coaching. I usually ask for collaboration
Yeah.
because I like to put us in a equal playing field and that we're going to work together,
Hmm.
right? But I am the boss. And so that is the other thing is that the first answer you typically get back from ChatGPT is never the correct answer.
Mm,
It usually takes 3 or 4. And so I will usually say, is this the best you can give me on a
mm,
scale of 1 to 10? How would you rate it? And let's say it comes out, this is an 8.
mhm,
I'd say, well, I think it's really more like a 5. I'd really like to get closer to an 8 or a 9. Can you rework this?
mhm,
So just to get deeper, like I'm the boss, I'm the one running it because I'm the human,
mhm.
right? And if you take everything that ChatGPT would tell you to do, I'm not sure that that would really line up with who you are as a person. So you have to have your own, thought process, and you've got to be discerning about what information you're using and also what you're sharing probably.
Mhm.
Um, I was comfortable sharing a lot of information. I know there's probably some people who are
Yeah,
nervous about
some
that.
people are nervous. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but I feel like what I see on the horizon, there's going to be a lot of jobs that are going to go by the wayside,
Mhm.
and the people who know how to effectively work with ChatGPT
Mhm.
will probably be the people that are most needed in the future.
Mhm.
And so, how best to make that happen than to help Chat really understand you, and then ask Chat how you can be indispensable.
Mhm. I like that. So is this something that you're sharing with your team? Like, how is this
Starting
making
to,
starting to? Yeah, I was
yeah.
gonna say, is this making its way into the organization?
Two people on the team have done a deep dive in it.
Mhm.
So we did some training. There was a gentleman who had some prompts. And so we went through a course that he did with the prompting. And so we got a bunch of prompts that took us down a path. We've now, the three of us have been really collaborating and just watching what's happening with those two. It's opened up the floodgates for what it's going to do for everybody on the team.
Yeah.
And don't have a complete vision of that yet, but
Yeah.
I'm working on it because it's powerful. And it's changed me. It's changed my output. I am so much more productive because it actually helped me tweak two things in my day that were not serving me, that I didn't realize weren't serving me. And
Mm.
it's allowed me to be far more productive.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Okay. So, to pivot real quick.
Hmm.
So, again, to return to the fact that you've been in this industry
Mm.
for, over 30 years,
Yeah.
which is incredible. You've had a lot of success.
So I'm old. Is that what you're saying? No.
Well, you are a veteran. But there are obviously other folks who've been in the
Hmm.
industry and maybe they're resisting
Hmm.
making the kind of changes
Mm.
that you made in their organization. Or maybe, maybe there's
Hmm.
a fear element, or maybe they feel like, they're not willing to go to do the sprint, to like,
Right.
so what's your message to someone in that position? Maybe, someone, what was it, 7, 8 years ago when you made the shift,
Right.
so someone maybe like around that period of time, what were you thinking then, and what would kind of be your message to someone in that position?
You have to make the change. Change is inevitable,
Mm.
right? If you don't change, you're standing still, and you don't really stand still, you go backwards. And the world is changing so quickly that if you don't jump on board, you're going to be left behind, you're going to be irrelevant. And there's a lot of great stuff that we learned back in the old school, in terms of training,
Mhm.
information, how to share products, how to build a business, mindset, leadership.
Mhm.
You can put that into automated formats. There are ways that you can take that and bring that into the online process. But if your team doesn't have an online process, they are missing out on a huge amount of business.
Mm.
And most people these days are on some social media site. I mean, they really and truly are, whether they might not all be on TikTok or all on Facebook or all on Instagram, but they're on some sort of a social media site. And people go to these places to look to see if you're in business.
Mhm.
If your profile looks like you who done it and run, you know what I mean? Like it's just a big mishmash.
Yeah.
They're not going to be attracted to that from a business
Mhm.
perspective. You have to have a social media business presence. You have to build your brand. And if
Mhm.
you're not doing that, you will be irrelevant.
Yeah. I obviously agree. Um, So, you just mentioned, which I think this is a great thing that we can maybe even clear up a little bit,
Hmm.
because obviously a lot of the people that come to us, they're frustrated
Hmm.
network marketers,
Right.
and of course, we make the point that, look, the offline stuff, it works.
Hmm.
You're a great example,
Hmm.
of like, hey, look, it works. It's just, especially in today's age, what we're teaching, it's much more efficient. It's much
Right.
more leveraged. I would also argue it's much more duplicatable.
It is.
And so, but there are, of course, a lot of great skills
Hmm.
that you pick up, and I think a lot of great character building happens. I've only done a little bit in my life of some of the old school stuff.
Hmm.
I have, pounded the phone. I had a sales job one time, and it's funny now. I would actually be much more equipped to
Right.
do
To do
that than
it.
I was at the time, because at the time, I don't know if you ever had this experience, but I mean, I was one of those people that would look at the phone and just start sweating.
Yeah.
And all I would just forget how to speak or how to be human when I picked
Right.
up the phone. It's like, I don't know what's happening. But it's a great character building,
Right.
So it's not that I think a lot of people perceive us as being very anti offline, and that we're like somehow denigrating all of that. And it's like, that's not the case.
No.
We just have a way that we, of course, like doing things, and
Right.
what we like teaching. But I'm wondering if you could kind of share, because obviously for someone who built,
Mhm.
for so long offline, um, what are some of the, key skills and some of the key mindset things that you can sort of glean from all, and obviously you're still teaching your team,
Mhm.
a portion of your team to
Mhm.
build offline. So talk about that a little bit and like, because again, we're actually quite positive towards all those skills. And if you have those skills, they translate, maybe you don't know where you are today. Maybe you don't know today how they translate, but they obviously and absolutely do.
Oh, they absolutely do. I mean, I think there are sales elements even on the attraction marketing side. And when you get on the phone with somebody, when
Mhm,
you get in a Zoom room with somebody, you have to learn how to ask questions. That's one of the number one things that we taught in the old school days. How
mm,
do you ask questions? Leadership skills. I mean, those are the types of things that people would die for in a lot of business settings,
mhm,
to have the type of leadership skills that were taught and trained in network marketing back in the day. And if you can just take some of those pieces, you could put that into automated formats. You can put that into email and text messaging systems. You can do quick little video clips. You could do a
mhm,
whole YouTube channel on those types of things. There's a lot of ways you could communicate that information, but there's those types of solid skills. And when I say that I'm teaching my team online and offline, the things that we teach that are offline are really all of those types of
mm,
skills. It's
mhm,
about asking questions, about listening to needs. It's about what are those needs? How do you line up what they're looking for with what we offer in
mhm,
terms of products? Um, People are looking for businesses online though. So we have to have that presence online. You can talk to them at the grocery store, you can talk to them wherever you feel comfortable talking as long as you're not spamming somebody
mhm.
because we're always teaching people to be human first and no one likes to be spammed.
Yeah, or pounced
Oh my
on,
gosh, yeah,
yeah.
you feel like a piece of meat, right? And you're just
Mhm,
taking the cart, or like I even took the cleaning products from the lady at my front door because I wanted her to stop showing up at my front door with the cleaning products.
mm,
I mean, I was feeling spammed in a sense.
mhm,
Now it turned out to be a great story, but I didn't want to do the business that way. And so that was why I had to dive in and learn, how do you do a business in a way that feels authentic and real to me and comfortable? And then I taught that to my team. And it's the same thing online. So when people come to attraction marketing and they're feeling frustrated, they're feeling discouraged, if they're on a team that is forcing you to do things that you're not comfortable doing, or saying this is the only way to build or this is the only way we'll support you,
mhm.
that's not going to help those people grow. And as a matter of fact, they might leave your team and go to a team that has systems that are online and offline, perhaps, or
Yeah,
just online.
yeah, definitely.
So did that answer your question? I'm not sure it entirely did.
Yeah, well, it just I like the idea that, and you kinda mentioned, just being human,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the things where obviously when you have when you're interacting with a screen, and obviously that someone is on the other side of another blue glowing rectangle,
Right.
there is a certain, like, impersonal element to that, and so but being in the right headspace of like, "Oh, yes, I'm a human, I'm interacting with another human," and,
Hmm.
I'm, obviously from our perspective, teaching, solving problems, and
Right.
that's the whole orientation. Sometimes it can be hard because there is such a disconnect, and there can also be a disconnect too in terms of speaking, one to one versus one to many,
Right.
like that's kind of another thing. Those are two different contexts. So
Right.
yeah, it's just important, of course, at the end of the day to remember those fundamental basic human skills. So,
Right.
yeah, I think you spoke to that,
Okay.
which is great. But so, like, where are we headed? Like,
Mhm.
where's the industry going? We can talk. It might be easier to talk shorter term because I think right now it's just hard to know what maybe 10 years from now is going to
Right.
look like. But obviously, your company, you're in a
Mhm.
health and wellness
Mhm.
company, and obviously, people will continue to have bodies for a while.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
there will continue to be a demand for that. But what do you see just overall in terms of the industry? Like, what does kind of the future look like right now?
I think we're in a weeding out phase. I think I've heard that from so many different leaders, and we're seeing it happen. We're seeing some major companies that no one would have ever thought would have either switched their business models or gone under that have had that happen.
Mhm,
And it seems like there's more on the horizon.
mhm,
So, in a weeding out time, what happens? Sort of the cream rises to the top. And so, in order to be part of that cream rising to the top, you have to have integrity. You have to be resourceful. You have to be relevant. You have to be willing to make change where you have to make change, pivot where you have to pivot. And so I think those are some of the things that I'm looking at from an industry perspective. And there's a lot of companies out there that don't seem to be making the pivot. There's a lot of companies that created massive debt situations
mhm,
after COVID times or the pandemic because they
mhm.
bought too much inventory or overspent on whatever, created new products, had bigger incentives, and they now might be struggling. So I think we're definitely in a weeding out phase. And my hope is that we will have the best of the best standing at the end.
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to be everybody. I don't think that the playing field will be as big and as broad as it is right now.
Interesting. So for just, no matter what company, no matter
Hmm.
what industry, so for your sort of average, if you will, networker today, I
Hmm.
mean, what do you think they should be focusing on, right now to stay relevant and to
Hmm.
stay in the game and to, upskill themselves? And what does that look like right now?
Well, you have to skill up. And,
Hmm.
and I think that's been the biggest piece of being a part of the attraction marketing community that I could say has helped me tremendously is skilling up. If you are not on top of the skills that are relevant today, that are working today, you're going to be left behind.
Hmm.
And I think attraction marketing has been a phenomenal place to skill up, and the mentorship here is unbelievable. And that would be the second piece, not just skilling up, but having a mentor, having somebody who will guide you down the path, somebody who has walked the path before you. Those are two things that I don't think people always think about. They think I have to push harder and hustle more and sell more product and
Hmm.
recruit more people. And all of those things are part of a network marketing business. But if you don't have the skills to lead the people,
Hmm.
you're going to be in trouble. And a lot of that comes from mentorship and skilling up and investing in yourself.
Hmm.
I've been in the industry a long time, and I have put more of an investment in myself from a time perspective and a financial perspective in the past several years than I ever have before. And I'm seeing it pay off big time.
Hmm.
And I would highly recommend that people invest in themselves.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Hey, my friends, hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick minute and invite you to something very cool. If you are tired of following up with dead leads, if you're tired of all the spammy, scammy conversations online, if you're tired of chasing down friends, family, and people you work with just to get somebody interested in your business, and you would actually like to talk to highly qualified people who have a genuine interest in doing business with you, then we have our all digital 5-day boot camp that teaches you all the things that we do, and it will help you get 3 to 7 new customers each and every single week. That's our personal guarantee to you. If you want to take advantage of that, click the link directly below this, or you can go to attractionmarketing.com/YouTube. Now, let's get you back to the show.
It's interesting. So, I mentioned this before, but, like our market, if you will, is
Hmm.
frustrated network marketers. And one of
Hmm.
the big frustrations that we often see in leaders is obviously attrition and,
Hmm.
just kind of
Hmm.
needing to, continue to, hustle and grind
Right,
and, or they watch their checks starting to shrink.
right.
And that's not something that you mentioned, but I
Mm-mm.
wonder if that was, was that at all a part of your journey to,
Oh, let's talk about another struggle
yeah.
now. I've had a couple of big things happen in my organization. So I had a very solid leader end up going into sort of retirement mode, and I had to recoup about 100,000 in volume a month.
Mm-hmm.
I had another leader that there was a tweak in our privileges and responsibilities around certain ways to build the business, and so that impacted another leg in my organization. So I've had to rebuild about 160,000 in volume a month.
Mm-hmm.
And had I not been a part of the attraction marketing community and learned the skills that I learned, I would
Hmm.
not have been able to do that as fast as I was able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people who are probably seeing different things happen, right?
Mhm.
You're not always going to be in this massive growth phase. I mean, let's
Sure.
just be honest, right? Like there's ups and downs in every industry and every business. And you want to take the times that are up and really run with it and be a
Mhm.
big part of that. But when it's going down, or if you're on a slide down, you just have to work harder. You have to put more time in. And I'm not saying hustle more. I guess it made it sound like that when I said work harder. I think when you have the systems and the tools and the processes, especially with automation,
Mhm.
you work smarter. It might appear that you're working harder initially when you get it all put together, but once it's in place, it is the most phenomenal thing that you can have in place.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder if we could dig in a little bit because we talked about authenticity
Mm-hmm.
a bit earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but when you start talking about leverage and
Mm-hmm.
automation,
Mm-hmm.
it can be easy to let the awesome, like maintaining authenticity while
Mm,
also employing automation, leverage, and things.
right.
How have you navigated that? Because that's obviously can be a challenge.
Well, I do respond to all my own emails.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of people use bots and different things like that, and maybe at some point I'll have to.
Mhm.
At this point, I'm still able to keep up with that. I do have an office assistant that can help with it, but when she's tried, she's not me. And I can, and it's not really big things, but it's like an emoji that she uses, or
Mhm.
it's, just the way she starts off a conversation. So I'm really trying to answer all my own emails and all my own text messages. So that's something that I
Mhm.
try to do. But when you're creating the content,
Mhm.
I don't just, that would be a place that if somebody, you can read emails and know that they came from AI because it doesn't sound like the person that you're used to talking to.
Mhm.
And I am really, really a stickler about my content, that when I'm writing it, that it's me.
Mhm.
And I really have written the emails. I have
Mhm.
not had AI write my emails. Now I'll run it through AI after I write it
Mhm.
and get some updates or tweaks, or maybe I'll say, I've got too many words here, or my text message is too long. Can you just help me make it a little
Mhm.
more concise? But I wrote it and
Mhm.
then I tweak it at the end. Because if you don't do some of that, you could end up sounding like a robot. You could
Mhm.
end up using words, or words are being used that you would never use, that make it
Mhm.
sound inauthentic and not real.
Mhm. I think just to get tactical for a moment,
Mhm.
that's probably one of the using AI in more of an editor, as an
Mhm.
editor,
Mhm.
that's huge. And I
Mhm.
think, one of the areas, at least today, where
Mhm.
AI might struggle a bit is, because of just the way it works, where
Mhm.
it's, you're kind of getting the average of a lot of things,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Fundamentally as
Mhm.
is an autocorrect engine, so
Right.
it's compiling a bunch of things and giving you kind of the average of its inputs. Um, so ideation is one of the areas where it can really struggle. But if
Right.
if you give it that first touch and you've got, you're giving it that personal touch and you're giving
Mhm.
it the idea that sparked that inspiration,
Mhm.
then it can clean it up and make it better. And like editing is huge for me because I can be a bit of a sloppy editor
Mhm.
personally, right?
Mhm.
Like I can miss little, like
Yeah, we
my
all
brain
can.
autocorrects. So that's like a wonderful thing for AI because my emails have gotten a lot, they've
They're
a lot more
amazing.
polished these days. Um, but yeah, I think that's a key piece is, maintaining your voice,
Mhm.
your perspective and vision and
Right.
values and all these things.
And I think using the proper AI tool, and I learned
Mhm.
this from Tim Irway, to use Claude for the writing.
Mhm.
So ChatGPT is great for the research and to pull everything together, but Claude really does a better job with writing. So if you want to have a really awesome editor, using Claude versus throwing it back into ChatGPT has
Mhm.
been helpful for me.
Mhm. Yeah, and what's cool, and I mean, this we're still in the early phases of all this,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's so much
Yeah.
right now. There's so many different tools to explore and everything. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool time. It's
It
a
is
very
a
cool
really
time.
cool time.
Was there a book um, that had a big impact along your journey? Was there anything that you'd like recommend for everyone? Like, oh, you've got to read X, Y, and Z.
Well, I have two. Can I do two instead of one?
Absolutely, yeah.
I would do Darren Hardy's Compound Effect.
Mhm.
Fabulous book and an easy read. And then the other one is Think and Get Rich by Napoleon Hill, but
Mhm.
that one's a little bit deeper and it takes a lot more work.
Okay, so tell me if you can just give me
Mhm.
what are like the key takeaways that like you kind of implement? Like what makes those in particular like so, important and
Yeah.
impactful for you?
Well, I think with Darren Hardy, just understanding how every little thing you do compounds. So
Mhm.
if you make a great eating decision, it leads to another great eating decision. So if you're on a weight loss journey, that's fantastic, but making one small poor eating decision
Mhm.
can lead to the next small poor eating decision. So
Mhm.
if you look at your habits, you look at each thing that you do each day, and from a network marketing perspective, we want to build
Mhm.
in maybe the least amount of time, right? Like we want to compress time and get as much done as we possibly can, especially if you're working from home. And so all of those habits really line up and are powerful and really necessary to do the next right thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that would be the compound effect. And then Think and Grow Rich, the thing that jumped out at me in that book was to burn the bridge. There's a point in the story or
Mm.
in the conversation where people come over on a boat. They're going to go fighting on this island, and
Mhm.
they burn the bridge when they get there, or burn the boat. Sorry, burn not
Burn
the
the boats,
bridge.
yeah.
Burn the boat when they get there because that means they have to fight to win. They
Mhm.
can't fight to retreat and hop back on the boat and run away.
Mhm.
And sometimes we give up on our goals too early and we don't fight. We don't burn the boat. Oh, well, if this doesn't work, I'll
Mhm.
do something else. And I think in network marketing, one of the things that really was powerful for me was I didn't give myself a way out. It was,
Mm.
this is the only way that I'm going to earn income. And I threw myself in 100%. I didn't have one foot in and one foot out.
Mhm.
And when I see people do that, they don't get anywhere near the success because
Mhm.
they're not fully committed.
That's right, because you said you wanted to kind of there was a certain lifestyle you wanted to maintain, and you saw
Right.
this as the opportunity, and so yeah, so not giving yourself a way out. Clearly that was effective.
It was very effective.
Excellent. Um, we talked a little bit about. So the question is, if there's one belief you could shift across the entire industry,
Mhm.
what would it be? We touched on that, I think a little bit because we talked about how you have to, especially now,
Mhm.
like you
Mhm.
have to upskill, and you have to embrace change. But is there anything else you would kind of add to that?
Well, I think staying in a state of openness and curiosity is really that you'll skill up if you do that. So it's going to kind of encompass everything we talked about. When you stay in a state of being curious and you're asking questions about why is this working, why is this not working, what do I need to tweak? And you're looking at across the board what you're doing, maybe the company you're with, the direction you're going in, how your team's working. Staying in that state of curiosity will really help you to grow your business, grow your team, grow yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so this is a little bit of a fun one. Is there a particular word
Mm.
that you would remove from a network marketer's vocabulary?
Oh my gosh. Here's a few. Oh man, that might take me a little bit longer
Okay.
to think of.
Yeah, yeah. No worries. No worries.
I mean, I'm just sort of thinking about all the people that get on the stage and the things that I go, ugh. The thing I don't like, and this isn't going to be just one word, I just don't like the flashy, the thing that I think it's what turns people off to network marketing.
Hmm.
It's like that fake conversation. It's
Hmm.
the well, even fake it till you make it. I mean, I hate when people say fake it till you
Hmm.
make it because that's not being authentic and real. And I understand the concept. I don't think that the concept is necessarily bad, but I hate the phrase fake it till you make
Hmm.
it. So, but that's probably not a very good one.
Yeah.
It's not a
No,
word.
actually, I mean that's great because again, getting back to that idea of authenticity, I
Mhm.
mean, that's something that people struggle with, right?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of suspect training out in the industry, right?
Yeah.
And that is one of the areas where, I mean, ethically, like people, I think, just generally, right? Like I think people are generally very ethical. They want to do the right thing. They want to
Right.
help people. They want to make an impact.
Right.
And sure, do they want to make money too? Of course, but they want to do it in a way that they feel good about.
Right.
And that can be one of the areas that it's just really awkward when you first get into the industry, and of course, you get advice like, "Oh, just fake it till you make it,"
Right.
and so, yeah, that's a interesting thing to navigate, when you're
Mhm.
new to the industry, so that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, there's all those little phrases, go for the no, and then people are out there, they're like counting up how many no's they get, and they're getting really discouraged, and they're
Mhm,
going backwards. They're not focusing on finding the right people and doing the right things to get people who are going to say yes or to get to the yes.
mhm,
So there's a lot of different things that I think in our industry that we could definitely up level.
yeah. Okay, so real quick
Mhm.
last, tactical thing. So, let's say someone, has a team,
Mhm.
and, what is the number one thing you'd recommend, for their team training system? Like, what does someone that's new to their team need to do, like, right away to have success and build belief? And, so, like, what are we telling people to do, like, in that, what's, like, kinda like the first activity? Like, what do we want them to be thinking and doing almost immediately when they join someone's team?
Well, they need to get into action because
Mhm,
action is going to build that belief. If you're out of action, you won't have the belief. It creates more fear. So you have to get into action. And the only way to get into action is to have duplicatable steps that are really simple for somebody to follow.
mhm,
And so if you have a process that has people thinking and creating vision boards and working on their dreams for months,
mhm,
they're not in action. And by the time they're done with looking at the vision board and they don't have no money in the bank, that's not going to be helpful for them. So on my team, we're trying to get them into action, get them into profit.
mhm,
And along the way, we build belief in all of the different areas about the company, the products, the opportunity, and themselves, their team, all of those pieces.
mhm. So what's the first thing I do? Like, let's say I'm joining someone's team,
Right.
and this can be, generic, but I
Mm-hmm.
join someone's team,
Mm-hmm.
and what's the first thing to get me into action
Mm-hmm.
and to build my, belief and
Mm-hmm.
and and get me, doing the things that are leading to, profitability
Right.
versus just, navel gazing?
Right.
What's step number 1?
Well, I teach people to do posting online
Mm,
that gets engagement, that gets people reaching back to them. And we post on the products and the stories. And so the idea is to get somebody some sort of leads, some sort of conversation from people so that they are asking you questions about
mhm,
what you're doing so that you can make a sale.
mhm.
That's where we would start.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, putting a post out there, and,
And it can be a story post, it can be their launch post. I mean, there's a
mhm.
variety of different
Sure.
posts that we teach, but
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
gotcha. Perfect. Um, well, is there anything, we've kind of been, kind of
Mhm.
meandering around, but is there anything that I didn't ask you that and actually, so we didn't kind of cover the context because I wanted to jump right into the conversation. We
Mhm.
didn't talk about how we're here,
Yeah.
we're at DNL.
Yeah.
I actually don't know what you'll be sharing in your
Oh,
presentation. So
okay.
is there anything you want to dig in there? Is there anything like we kind of didn't cover that you're excited about that you want to share with everyone?
Well, I am super excited. I'm talking about tools and automation tools.
Mhm,
And so a number of years ago, I didn't have these things. And so I'm really excited about them. I'm really excited that I actually know how to create them and implement them, and I didn't have to hire somebody to do them, which is just the skilling up. We go back to skilling up again. But I think all of the duplication tools that are in process and in place, it helps people to have more time to build their business, more time to go out and really help people on their team to get to the levels that they want to get to, and then enjoy life. So I'm teaching about duplication tools.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Well, where does someone find out more about you?
Well, they can find me in a lot of different places. I'm on all the social media. So I'm Jennifer Glacken and Jenn Glacken. So you can find me on Instagram at Jenn Glacken and on Facebook as Jennifer Glacken. I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a YouTube channel. And so all of those places are places you can find me. I'm on TikTok. Yes,
Excellent.
that was a big jump for me to go on TikTok. And
Yeah, no, that is. That does feel like, that's a different vibe
it's
for
a little
sure.
bit of a different vibe, but you know what? I was going to crack that nut and I've had fun there.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
awesome. Well, it's been obviously a pleasure sitting down with someone, with your level of experience who's built offline and transitioned online. And so that's a really cool journey. And I'm glad that you could have a seat and share. And it's been a pleasure.
It's been awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Hey, what's up, my friends? Hope you enjoyed that show. Hope you got some great value from the content, and hope you enjoyed our conversation with our speaker. I want to just remind you, if you are ready to stop chasing people and start having people chase you, if you're tired of all the spammy, scammy conversations all the time, and you'd rather have 3 to 7 highly qualified customers each and every single week coming to you in your inbox, you are invited to grab our free 5-day digital boot camp that will teach you how to attract the right kind of people, create the kind of influence so you can start enrolling those 3 to 7 customers each and every single week. And you can get that at the link below, or you can go to attractionmarketing.com/YouTube. That's attractionmarketing.com/YouTube. And if you got some great value from the show and you want to stay in touch, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and of course, share this message far and wide. There will be much more conversations just like this one coming at you very soon. Look forward to having you with us here with the Attraction Marketing Show.